Quick, imagine someone asked you to name a scientist from pop culture. Who would you say? Well, actually, don't imagine it. I just did ask you. Name a scientist from pop culture. Okay, we got one? Okay, I came up with a list too. Here's mine. Bill Nye the Science Guy, Doc Brown, Dr. Honeydew from The Muppets, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Professor Frink from The Simpsons, Phineas and Ferb, the cast of The Big Bang Theory, Sid the Science Kid, and of course the cast from Mythbusters. That's a decent list. But do you know something missing? That's right. Where are all the women? If you're a fan of Broadway musicals, maybe you've seen Annie Get Your Gun, the story of Annie Oakley. One song from there is called Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better. It's a singing duel between Annie and her gentleman friend, and it always goes with Annie saying, anything you can do, I can do better, and he saying, no, you can't. Which is a pretty funny song, but it's not so funny when that's the phrase that so many girls hear on standardized STEM exams. No, you can't, instead of yes, I can. So in this presentation, we're going to look at the gender gap in standardized science exams. First, we'll look to see if there really is a gender gap still, and then we'll see the effects of any possible gender gap and how to possibly overcome that. So first of all, is there a gender gap on standardized science exams? And after many, many years of data, the evidence is pretty clear that yes, there's still a gender gap. Looking at the college admissions tests, for example, both the SAT and the ACT, since their inception, have shown a gender gap favoring the boys over the girls in math and science. The SAT, of course, does not have a specific science part, but in the math part, the males have always scored higher than the girls. And the ACT, which does have a science portion, again, the boys score significantly higher than the girls. It's not just these college admissions tests, however. We see the same trend in a variety of tests. The National Assessment for Educational Progress, for example, shows that although there is no gender gap in the early grades, by the time the kids graduate from high school, boys are scoring significantly better than girls on science exams. Looking internationally, we see the same thing in the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, or TEMS. Again, the younger grades, there's not much of a gender gap, but by the time they get to late high school, the boys again are performing better than the girls. What's even more interesting is that this is a result that's common across all ethnic groups in the United States and in most countries throughout the developing world. Boys simply outperform girls on standardized science exams. And so this brings to mind two possibilities then. Either girls simply cannot do science as well as boys, or maybe there's something that's a little fishy with the standardized science exams, where the girls can't replicate their knowledge. So let's take a look at this first option here. Can girls do science as well as boys? And by all accounts, the answer is yes, they can. Just like Annie Oakley was saying. In fact, the girls might be able to do it better. Reversing years of boys dominating science, in recent years, girls have actually become more common in science classes than boys. Only in biology do boys outnumber girls, and then by advanced biology, girls flip the tables as they do in chemistry and advanced chemistry. Even that long-held bastion of boys, physics, boys narrowly outnumber girls. Only in advanced physics does the ratio become more pronounced, with 2 boys for every 1 girl. So yes, girls are definitely showing up to class. But can they do science as well? Well, again, the data says yes, they can. Girls in general have higher GPAs in all subjects, including math and science. However, looking at the right half of this graphic, you can see that these higher GPAs cannot translate into higher test scores. So again, there's a discrepancy. Why do girls, if they can perform just as well in the classroom, why do they perform worse on a standardized science exam? We're going to go ahead and focus on the advanced placement program for just a moment too. This is one case where the girls are not showing up to class quite as much. You can see that the boys outnumber the girls in most AP math and science classes, with the exception of biology and environmental science. So boys do still here have a dominance. Looking at AP scores as well, the news is just as bad. The boys score higher than the girls on every single AP science and math exam. Not just that, but looking at the all-important passing rate, defined as 3, 4, or 5, which will earn students college credit, you can see that boys, again, pass the exam more often than girls, so more boys are receiving college credit in AP exams, science exams, than are girls. Not only that, but the best of the boys are outperforming the best of the girls by a wide margin as well. A great many more boys than girls earn the best score of 5 on the exam in every single science subject. Well, you might be wondering, if girls can do better than boys in the classroom, what's the big deal? It's just a science exam. Well, these standardized exams tend to have an outsized influence on a person's education and later life. Lower standardized test scores can lead directly to lower confidence in girls' STEM abilities, which leads to less enjoyment in their STEM classes and lower college admissions in STEM. In fact, we see this play out. Looking at this graphic here shows you the percent of bachelor's degrees earned by women over a 20-year period. Assuming gender parity, there would be a nice 50-50 ratio between boys and girls for every subject. However, you can see that girls are significantly underrepresented in computer science and engineering. Math is a little bit better, but then physical sciences, again, drops down. It's only in the biological and social sciences where girls are more common than boys. Of course, fewer undergraduate degrees leads directly to fewer women in the STEM workforce, and we can see that again from the data. Again, gender parity would assume 50% ratio of girls to boys in the workforce, and we can see that girls just don't reach that in any STEM subject, coming closest in the biological sciences, but lagging far behind, for example, in engineering. All this data is represented nicely in this graphic showing the education pipeline. This graphic is from Canadian statistics, but similar for American too. It starts off with an input of equal numbers of boys and girls in early high school science classes, but by the time they reach 12th grade, the ratio has changed significantly for only 1 girl to 2 boys in high school science, such as physics. Moving on to the undergraduate years, this ratio gets even worse. There's only 1 girl for every 4 boys in first-year engineering classes. And then that ratio maintains itself as you go through master's and PhD programs. The end result, though, is that, as you can see in the bucket here, the number of engineers that are women are much smaller than boys. It's a 1-to-9 ratio. So think of that. For every 1 woman, there are 9 men working in engineering. Truly amazing. And so now that we've established that there is a gender gap, let's look at why that might be. And there's 2 reasons here. Since girls have been shown to perform just as well as boys in the classroom, it's not that they can't do science, so there must be something up about the testing experience. And one reason is that tests often play to boys' strength, and then secondly, girls just lack the confidence to do as well as boys do. Since 1941, there's been evidence that there are 3 types of intelligence. Verbal intelligence, which girls typically excel at, quantitative, and visual spatial. It's the last 2, especially the last one, that the boys are favored in. Boys tend to do better on these visual spatial items, which require test takers to visualize a situation, analyze or rotate it, and change it. These are all common scenarios on standardized exams, especially involving higher math such as geometry and calculus, and the higher sciences like physics and chemistry. But these skills are not as emphasized in daily classroom instruction, where knowledge and problem solving is usually practiced instead. This, of course, leads to the classic debate, are boys better at visual spatial because of nature or nurture? There's definitely evidence that the brains of boys are wired and structured differently than girls, perhaps leading to better visual spatial abilities. But there's also definite evidence that boys are nurtured more in visual spatial realms, where they are encouraged to build things, to model things, work with Legos, play video games. All these things allow boys to see the world from different perspectives and to construct it. Girls are usually not encouraged to do this as much, and so they don't have as much experience with it, either outside the classroom or inside the classroom, thus leading to lower standardized test scores. A second factor that could lead to lower test scores is that girls lack the confidence in science learning efficacy. Boys tend to be more confident of their science abilities, kind of the boyish bravado, whereas girls believe they achieve their grades through hard work. So even though they had better grades in the classroom, they think it's because they studied more, worked harder, not because they were better at science. And so although this hard work is great for homework and studying, it's not so good for standardized tests, where they are, you just answer the question. So on these standardized tests, boys are more willing to take risks, guess, and rise to the challenge, whereas girls are more reluctant and less sure of themselves, leading to lower test scores. So with these problems in mind, how can we fix it? Well, there's a couple of options. The first one is to simply de-emphasize the importance of standardized exams. They are, after all, just a test, and evaluations of students should be made over more data than just simply a score from a standardized exam. So look at the big picture more than just the number. Next, we can improve girls' visual spatial abilities, which would not only help them on the test, but which are also crucial to occupations like physics, engineering, surgery, architecture, and chemistry. So not only could we be improving test scores, but we could also be leading them into the STEM workforce. So we can do this by encouraging girls to play with models and building toys. If you've been down the toy aisle lately, you can see that Lego, for example, has an entire line devoted to girls and marketed towards girls right now. In the classroom, we can focus our instruction using analogies and visual modeling through computer simulations, and that would help all students visualize the situation better, as well as girls especially. And then lastly, we could also work to improve girls' science confidence and learning efficacy, both in the home, in school, and in the community at large. We should be encouraging our girls to explore science and providing opportunities for them to do so, whether in the form of birthday presents, summer camps, trips to the library, or whatnot. We should make sure they have the supportive experiences. We should also showcase positive role models too. When girls see women doing well in STEM, then they can see themselves succeeding as well, and they can say, yes, I can, instead of, no, I can't. And lastly, we should find teachers who are able to relate to, engage with female students, and learn from them. So in conclusion, although there definitely is a standardized science exam gender gap, we can work to improve this gap by promoting science and promoting visual spatial abilities in our girls. And soon, hopefully, they will be able to say, yes, I can, instead of, no, I can't. Thank you.